George Russell's future has been heavily discussed in the previous couple of months, and it seems like the Brit is going to focus a lot more on Mercedes regarding the contractual talks from 2026 onwards. With a lot of question marks being put on Russell's future in the past, did the Brit shut down every possibility of a potential move away from Mercedes with a new $40 million contract? More importantly, has Mercedes finally decided to focus on what matters the most, the core of the drivers they've brought to this level? There's no doubt that Mercedes is one of the hottest topics in the Formula One world right now, especially because of the entire George Russell situation. The current driver for the Silver Arrows has found himself in a very tricky position, having to constantly hear rumors about whether or not he's going to be replaced by Verstappen, which, I guess, is not the most pleasant thing to hear. But on the other hand, let's not forget about the primary goal of Toto Wolff. It was always to continue with the lineup he currently has. And therefore, it's slowly but surely looking like Russell will remain a member of Mercedes. According to reports close to Mercedes, it seems like Russell and the Brackley-based squad have been finalizing a multi-year contract extension that's valued at $40 million per annum. The report also states that Max Verstappen will definitely stay with Red Bull for 2026, which makes a lot of sense because he hasn't tried out the new powertrains of the Austrian team just yet, and therefore he cannot make a conclusion as to whether or not they will be competitive at the front. But let's focus more on Russell and how the Brit's future has been shaped by the latest development of events. Even though he knew he was not the first choice of Mercedes, he didn't show weakness at all. Quite the contrary, he was adamant that this is something he's going to succeed in, and he's going to show the team that he's worthy of his seat. And doing that while having a four-time world champion on the move is definitely a hard thing to accomplish. Of course, we don't know to which extent these talks have reached, but at the end of the day, the fact that we have to wait for confirmation for so long goes to show that something was definitely going on in the background. The negotiations between Russell and Mercedes are highly likely to take place after the summer break, and that is still leaving some place for discussion. If Mercedes and Russell are adamant that they'll continue the collaboration, then why not do it now? And why prolong this painful period? I guess the situation hasn't improved a lot in terms of Wolff wanting Max. Perhaps negotiations are going to restart in 2026, when Mercedes is dubbed to have the supremacy compared to the other teams in terms of engine development. But even though Russell and Mercedes are very likely to extend their collaboration, it's going to come at a big expense. As Bradley Lord once said, this is a process in which horns will be tangled between Russell and Wolff. But now the turning point seems to be the number of sponsor appearances that the Brit would have to make. Mercedes is pushing on signing the contract extension before the summer break, but it remains to be seen whether the legal advisors of Russell will approve the signing in such short span of time. Altogether, the cards are now on the table. And Russell said after Spa that the position has changed massively. He's no longer worried about his future and is in a position where he needs to perform at the strongest level possible in order to secure his future. Furthermore, he said, as I mentioned, these last months of going from the position where I was stressed about my future and I was concerned about it and I've continued to perform. I just think it's in my own hands. So, there's no point losing sleep about it. Mercedes needs the best driver in their race car, and I believe that I'm right up there. I don't think there are many people doing a better job than I am. So, I need them and they need me, and that's how it goes. The position of Toto Wolff is very interesting as well. Even though he admitted that when a driver like Verstappen is making himself available, he assured Russell that he can sleep easily without any disturbances in the following period. Tackling horns has happened in the past, and that's not something that should be commented on in great detail because we know how things ended up with Hamilton and Mercedes. But in this situation, they view Russell as the next leader of the team. And when talking about it to a greater extent, Wolff said, as a driver, Russell is so mature and stable that I don't think it makes any difference to his performance. On the contrary, I would have wished to have him in a safe place a little bit earlier, but we haven't managed to do that. But I'm optimistic that he's going to sleep well over the summer break. Russell triggered the whole media avalanche and I might be naive, but I try to be transparent with the drivers. I said to him, listen, I have the obligation of exploring what Max is going to do in the next few years. And I think he just came out with it, wanting to show I'm aware of what's going on, and there's nothing happening behind my back, and I'm fine with that. The situation of sending Antonelli to a temporary home in Alpine still exists. However, in this case, I highly doubt it's going to happen because of how everything unfolded between Russell and Mercedes. Still, The tenacity and stubbornness shown by Toto Wolff is something that we need to admire, as he is perceived as this intellectual human being who knows what he's doing and how he's approaching negotiations with everyone available on the grid. But there is a very interesting situation that needs to be extrapolated here, because it comes from a very controversial figure, Nico Rosberg. The German driver and former champion said that Toto Wolff is probably the worst negotiator on the grid that you'd want to have as a team principal. The fact that he raced between 2010 and 2016 for Mercedes goes to show that as well, elaborating further on the situation that Russell is currently in and how he can make the most out of it. Rosberg went on to say, "Did you hear George Russell? He was like, oh no, definitely I won't have a contract signed by Hungary. Like so definitely, that he knows nothing's going to happen until Hungary. So there must be something cooking there, right? But it's like, we're in August then. There's only a couple of months left after that to the end of the season." And he's like, oh no, for sure I'm not going to have a contract yet.